Crazy Crab here. I wanted to talk quickly about the Star Wars watching order. What order should you show this to a kid or someone who has no idea? This is what we're talking about. No idea about Star Wars. If somebody does have an idea about Star Wars, they know Darth Vader's the father, they know all the basic stuff, they know R2D2, they know enough. Well, it doesn't really matter. You might want to just start at episode 1 and watch it in order, or in order of release. Probably one of those two would be just fine. But we're talking about someone who doesn't know crap. They have no clue about Star Wars. They don't know anything really. So most likely a younger person, a kid, and you're going to show them the Star Wars saga. And I already know there's a million articles, there's a million YouTube videos talking about this. Now there's a million and one, because I feel like have a specific suggestion that may be a little different than most suggestions. And we're just talking about the originals and the prequels. Obviously we have new movies now. I liked Rogue One. If you want to throw Rogue One first before starting episode 4, that makes sense to me. But let's just not talk about Rogue One or not talk about Disney. Let's talk about just the prequels and the original trilogy. That's what we're concerned about. And there's obviously problems with the obvious ideas. The first idea is just to watch them in release order. That's suggested by a lot of people. Like, that seems like the most common sense thing. That seems like that's the order that we all watched them in. That's the order that, start with episode 4, 5, and 6. And then we go back and we find out, some of the mysteries that were, some of the unanswered questions are going to be answered in episodes 1, 2, and 3. And that's perfectly fine, except for one big problem. You watched all the bomb movies, and now you're going to go watch all the crap movies. And it's kind of weird. You can't act like these are all on par with each other. They're not. There's a major difference between the prequels and the original trilogy. Major, major difference. Main difference, the original trilogy is good. So that's a problem in that you're introducing someone to these movies. You watch the 3 and then you start watching crappy ones, and we had to go through that. I don't want to put people through that if I don't have to, where there's nothing else to look forward to. It's just crap from here on out. I mean, yeah, some good moments, some good battles, some good. I mean, it's not all bad. I have just made the 10 best prequel moments, so they had good moments, but overall, not as good of films. And there's other things as well. There's other reasons why that order's not the best, but really, starting with 1 and going up, though, I don't know if that's the best either, because you watch again, you're giving away everything. You're giving away who Darth Vader is. It's no surprises anymore. You see who Jabba the Hutt is right off the bat. Now that's the main thing I'm about to talk about here. So anyway, there's this third idea that most people have heard of called the Machete Order, and that's what I'm going to look at today. And here's an article, The Star Wars Saga Introducing Machete Order. This came out November 11th, 2011, so it's not new. There's been a lot of talk about this. A lot of people like it. Now, there's one thing that I'm going to change about it. And that's a big if you're going to be watching the original trilogy on Blu-ray or DVD or any of the special editions that came out that have been coming out since 1997. If you're watching a special edition, Blu-ray or whatever, any of those, then the Jabba the Hutt thing doesn't matter. That the fact that Jabba the Hutt is spoiled in episode 1, because Jabba the Hutt originally was this guy that Han Solo kept mentioning he owes money to. We didn't know what he looked like. He was very mysterious. Jabba the Hutt. And we don't find out until Return of the Jedi, the last movie, episode 6. We finally find out what's up with Jabba the Hutt. And he's like, oh my God, he's this huge freaking slug. But we don't know that. Now with the special editions, well, George Lucas decided he was going to take a deleted scene and stick Jabba the Hutt in there as a CGI, as a pretty bad CGI. And that's what we have now for the original movie. For episode 4, A New Hope, we see already who Jabba the Hutt is. So if you're watching the Blu-ray or any of the special editions, if that's what you're going to show to this newcomer to Star Wars, then episode 1 does not spoil that. And I think you should put episode 1 in the order, despite what this article says, which is a great article. And I'm even promoting the Machete Order. But he says, introducing Machete Order. How can you ensure that a viewer keeps the twists a surprise while introducing young Anakin before the end of Return of the Jedi? Simple, watch them in this order. 4, 5, 2, 3, 6. You may notice episode 1 is gone. Now, I'm not going to review this whole article because the article is strong in itself. I'll put a link to it in the description if you haven't already read this. Pretty pretty good stuff, and it really convinced me that this is the way to go. The Machete Order. 65236. But what about episode 1? Well, like I said earlier, if you're going to be watching episodes 4, 5, and 6, the special editions, whether it's Blu-ray or DVD or 1997 VCR, if you're going to watch a VHS, you might as well get one from 95 or prior and watch them the original, unless you like the special edition. I haven't met anyone yet who does. But the point is, we're going to stick episode 1 back in, because if you're watching the special edition on Blu-ray or DVD, then you're going to find out who Jabba the Hutt is anyway in episode 4, the first film we're going to watch. So, episode 1 does not spoil Jabba the Hutt. Stick it back in. Now, why are we leaving it out, though, you may ask? Why skip episode 1? And this is when we're going to kind of defend episode 1 a little bit. He talks about how crappy it is, but that's not the problem. He says the reason to skip episode 1 isn't that bad. It's that it's irrelevant. Irrelevant. Well, if it's irrelevant, then why skip it? Because it's irrelevant. He wants to keep the story focused. Okay, I get that. But we're showing this to a child. We're showing this to a kid. We want to show him the Star Wars universe. We're going to leave out an entire film just because it's irrelevant. Now, I could leave it out if it's like ruins it for us. It ruins the surprise. It ruins it, like I've been talking about Jabba. But if it doesn't do that, it's just irrelevant. I don't see why leaving it out is. Why would we leave it out? Maybe the kid will like it. It's exciting, especially for a kid. It's kind of a kid's movie. Why are we leaving that out? Anyway, let's just jump down here, and here's the stuff you no longer have to see thanks to skipping episode 1. Well, if we're just trying to skip bad stuff, then why are we watching the prequels at all? If we're just trying to remove bad stuff, we need to just skip the entire prequels, first of all. But let's look at these anyway. Virtually no Jar Jar. Well, how do we know the kid's not going to like Jar Jar? Jar Jar is a new idea, a new character. At least it's not, R2-D2 or Chewbacca shoved in our face that don't belong. At least George Lucas tried to come up with something new. Yeah, he's kind of for the comic relief, kind of like C-3PO was in the original trilogy, except C-3PO is still around now in episode 1. That's what's stupid to me. That's what bothered me. Jar Jar didn't bother me. I don't really have a problem with Jar Jar. I'm not saying he's one of my favorite characters. He's not one of my favorite characters. I liked Count Dooku, and I liked other guys from the from the prequels a lot more. But Jar Jar wasn't that bad. Occasionally, yes, the humor was stupid. No doubt about it. Stepping in doo-doo, speaking Spanish, muy, muy. I can't do Jar Jar. But anyway, let's move on. No midi-chlorians. Yeah, okay, there's no midi-chlorians except in episode 1, other than one small mention in episode 3. But midi-chlorians, I didn't really have a problem with midi-chlorians first time I watched it. I didn't walk out of the theaters like, stupid midi-chlorians, but maybe I would have if there wasn't so many other stupid things to complain about. I didn't really think about it as being that stupid until I saw the backlash on midi-chlorians and realized, yeah, it is kind of dumb, because the Force was supposed to be something like kind of spiritual, not so much scientific, but now it seems to be more scientific, or at least a combination. But it's not that bad. Okay, obviously, to use the Force, you got to be able to hone into the Force. It's something real. It surrounds us. It binds us. And certain people can hone into it better than others. And part of that is luck, or it is what's inside you, midi-chlorians. You have a certain midi-chlorian count, apparently. Hey, it's not the end of the world. I don't think that no kid is going to be like, oh, I hate that movie, or midi-chlorians. No Jake Lloyd. He didn't like Jake Lloyd in his acting. Funny thing is, most actors in the prequels didn't seem to do that great a job. So are we going to keep on continuing to blame the actors? Or we eventually need to blame the director, or the screenwriter, the dialogue. Jake Lloyd did the best he could. I think Jake Lloyd did a fine job with what he had to work with. Same with everyone else. Same with Hayden Christensen. Same with Natalie Portman. Same with Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson, nobody is going to deny. He's a great actor. That guy is solid. But he was kind of boring in Star Wars. What happened? He just suddenly became a bad actor? No. No confusing Padme Queen switcheroo. I don't think that's going to bother any kid. It didn't bother me, and I wasn't even a kid when I watched it. The whole subplot with Padme and her decoy makes no sense. It's clear that this was just so people could interact with Padme without knowing she was a queen. I didn't even think about that. That wasn't clear to me. I mean, it's a good point, but it didn't. I didn't think it was that obvious that this is true. I didn't think it was obvious at all because I didn't notice that. I don't think any kid's going to notice that. This is a fine observation, but anyways, Less confusing master apprentice relationships. Okay, yeah. If you're watching the movies like every 6 months or something, yeah, you're gonna just putting episode one is going to confuse things because it does. I understand it loses a little focus. Now you have Darth Maul. Darth Maul dies. Yeah, it to keep things streamlined. That's why you would take out episode one. But if you're watching these like every day, like you're gonna watch episode four one day, the next day you're gonna watch five, next day one, you're going to watch it in machete order, but you're going to throw in one and you're watching them every day or every couple of days. Whoever's watching is going to be fine. The kid's going to be fine. They're not going to be like, I'm so confused. Why was Darth Maul? And then all of a sudden it was Dooku. No, kids are smart. They can follow. They'll be fine. Nothing about trade disputes. Yeah, all the trade dispute things and all that. Yeah, it's going to be much easier for a kid to understand. A group of systems wanting to leave the Republic in episode two than trade disputes. No problem. They don't have to understand everything about trade disputes. Episode one is, yeah, it's got a lot of politics and trade disputes and weird talk like that, but it's still enjoyable for a kid, I think, for the most part. I don't think there's any reason to leave it out just because it talks about trade disputes. Okay, here, no pod racing. He doesn't like pod racing. He says it's an action sequence for the sake of an action sequence, and it goes on forever. An action sequence for the sake of an action sequence. Aren't most action sequences for the sake of action sequences? But even, I mean, there was a reason here. He was obviously, they were showing this guy having, this kid, his incredible instincts. He's able to pod race. He's the only human who can do it. That's definitely a guy who's very, very strong with the Force, whether he knows it or not. And, also action sequences are in movies to make them more fun, more exciting. The prequels are known for being kind of boring. So, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with having an action sequence. I like the pod race. A huge number of plot holes surrounding gambling. Like, any kid's going to watch it and say, oh, that didn't. Why is he betting on that? He could just do this and this and this and this and this. No, most people don't. What plot holes are we talking about? I mean, yeah, the gambling thing, I guess they could have come up with a bunch of different ways. I understand that. It's been criticized, but that's just because we tend to overthink things as hardcores. A kid's not going to overthink this. A kid's going to see that Qui-Gon had an idea. He made this gambling bet. People do that in real life. We do things that don't make sense all the time. So, Qui-Gon, he was a pretty cool guy and a good Jedi and a wise guy, but doesn't mean a wise Jedi, but it doesn't mean that he's, every decision he makes is perfect. I mean, we saw Padme getting on to him. It was addressed in the movie. Trusting everything we have in a child, the Queen will not approve. And he says the Queen doesn't have to know. She said, well, I don't approve. I mean, it was clear that the Queen, Padme, who was the Queen, was not liking this. So we weren't the only ones who thought that this was kind of weird, what he was doing. Padme herself thought and said that in the film. So, the kid's not going to think anything of it, and whether it was lazy screenwriting or whatever, I didn't think it was as bad as lazy as some of the new stuff we're seeing in the Disney Star Wars movies. So anyway, the pod racing scene, you're really going to leave it. You're going to leave the movie out because the pod racing scene. No virgin birth. We simply don't know or care who Anakin's father is, and the botched implication that Palpatine knows is gone. Okay, moving on. I don't. Anyway, bottom line. Why are we skipping episode one? If the only reason I think I would want to skip it. Funny thing is, I would skip it because I'd be showing a child the VCR. I'd be showing a child not the special edition. So I would want Jabba the Hutt to be a surprise in episode 6. So I would skip episode 1 for that reason and then show them episode 1 afterwards, which it's not the end of the world if you want to do that. You could do that to streamline things, but I like episode 1 in there. If you're going to watch the special editions, I like keeping it in there because you're watching now Darth Vader grow from a young child, and you're also seeing a young Obi-Wan. You're not jumping around. Obi-Wan's old. Obi-Wan's young now. Obi-Wan's even younger now. It's just kind of like jumping. It's just too much jumping around by putting episode 1 at the end. So even though I would probably do it just because of the Jabba thing, but again, we're not talking about that because we're watching the DVDs or the Blu-rays. Jabba's already spoiled in episode 4. I think most people are going to show their kids the Blu-rays because that's just where we are now. VCRs are history. You probably don't even own a VCR anymore. So the order I suggest is episode 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6. And if you want, you could also start the whole thing with Rogue One because that happens right before episode 4. Doesn't spoil anything, and I like that movie. I think kid would enjoy that. You get more of a modern movie, a modern look, and maybe that gets them into the Star Wars. You never know. And then episode 4 will just hook them. You never know. And then, of course, after this, you start watching the Disney crap if you want to. So anyway, that's the deal. And by the way, I know that Rogue One is by Disney too, but I don't know what happened. But for some reason, Rogue One came out okay, and episode 7 and 8, whatever. So anyway, that's my suggestion. The Machete Order. I really like the Machete Order. I'm not going to go through it all. Please read the article or search Machete Order to get more of the reasons why this is a good idea. Only thing I'm defending is episode 1. And you probably think, wow, you really liked episode 1. I walked out of episode 1 like suicidal. Okay, it was so bad. So please don't think I'm a big prequel lover or episode 1 lover. But hey, episode 1, it has softened on me over the years. And if I'm showing it to a kid, I'm definitely going to try to keep it in there. I mean, it's definitely, you're showing it to a kid under the age of 14 or something. I wouldn't want to take episode 1 out. So thanks for joining me. Crazy Crap out of here.